anyway, this is almost like the secret workshop, because it was a secret as far as what the teaching stuff was, what we were going to be presenting this time. I had no idea until this morning, which is interesting. I do know that when we're doing the tribes classes, that we after several 12 tribes classes, the small ones, we will take the new information that's given in every one of those and compile them into a larger context for the large workshops. So I knew it was going to be something about some of the things that were happening with tribes, but you'll be getting an itinerary. Believe it or not, we have a printed itinerary, actually. It even has times. Take those with a grain of salt. We're aiming for these times. This is what we would like to see, our ideal scenario. How it works out.
It's him. If you haven't got one, it's him. And he's big, so don't argue.
He's hiding. Curry. Anyway, I was quite surprised this morning when we finally got the first burst of data release, which was the itinerary, what exactly we're teaching. The name of the workshop, which we didn't know until this morning, is called Revelations of the Dhala-luma, Transfiguration of the Kryst, and the Kale-hara Celebration. Now, all of these words were new to me, except dhala-luma, which we learned about in the last 12 tribes class. So tonight I'm going to speak about the classic, try to tell you what we're going to tell you. And then tomorrow and the next day we'll tell you. And hopefully one of these days we'll be able to tell you what we told you so you can remember it by the end. It's supposed to be a very good speaking format. I never had any training in public speaking, just so you know. In fact, we dropped out of high school or college, and entry-level college, because we had a public speaking course. So we are doing our best to make these presentations as useful and enjoyable for you as possible. If we have to pick one or the other, we'll pick useful. All right, we try to make it enjoyable. And sometimes it goes into strange hours where we're having workshops that were supposed to be at 3 in the afternoon, at 3 in the morning, and those kind of things. I'm hoping that this isn't going to be one of those. However, the entire day 2, when you see your itinerary, the day 2 information that starts with part 3, Spirit Ascension, the Kale-hara, and the Kali Yuga End Cycle, I have none of that yet. Right? They've shown, yeah, right. There are quite a few graphs from what I hear. There are quite a few updates on graphs we have. So it's going to be one of those scratchy graph presentations where even if they're messy looking and not typeset, at least there's enough to get the information across. What we're trying to do, and this is the first time we've been able to do it, with the information that's been given since January of this year with the 12 tribes classes, it's the first time we are able to put it in an entire sequence that leads up to a conclusion, a solid conclusion, where you get to understand what all that means. In fact, the conclusion, that is the information that is most important, the information about where the drama on this planet is heading, and about how long that's going to take, and those kind of things. In order to explain that, it's important that all the other information that has to do with Rasha body anatomy and something else called the Risha body anatomy, which is absolutely new, and I have nothing on it yet. I have no charts. I know what it is, and I've seen the pictures, and they're all like on matchbooks, scribbled kind of things right now. But this information, once you see the information in the sequence it belongs, it will help you all to understand the significance of the things that are happening on this planet with our sun and with the larger cosmic community that we have always been a part of. So there is a flow to the data frame this time. It reminds me of the last time we had an itinerary that looked like this was when we did the 2006 February Tenerife workshop, where it was like we had a 2-page one that time. But the sophistication of the information is close to that level as it was in Tenerife. As far as the orientation goes, we're going to speak a little bit tonight, and if you'll notice on your itinerary, this is a short one, as far as it's an hour and a half for the orientation, just to give you an idea of the things that we're going to cover, a little bit about what they are and what they mean. And then when you guys get to go to sleep, and enjoy it while you can, just in case it ends up one of those workshops where we're up until 4 in the morning or 8 in the morning, like from the night before. I'm hoping not. But we will be starting at noon tomorrow with the heavy program. What I will be doing at 10:30, I mean, as we'll be doing, we'll be sorting and putting together the program for tomorrow and the next day. So we have a busy evening before we even, we probably won't do sleep this workshop at all, the rate it looks. But the information is all coming from the 12 Tribes classes. There's been an update in the 12 Tribes classes. There were supposed to be 2 sets of 12 Tribes classes where we would have one group of 12 tribes called 12 Tribes 1, and that would be 12 classes, and then there was a second group for the second year. And they are no longer going to be running because the first group is actually finishing what the second group was supposed to. Actually, when the second group was finished, the 2 groups were supposed to get together and do a certain very large activation level. There's been an expedition in the program because of certain things that you'll learn about during this weekend, that 12 Tribes 2, the activations that they were supposed to be a part of are already underway, and they are almost through. They will be done in May as far as the next Titharo. And so there was going to be some kind of other next level class in the same type of structure. We just don't know what it is yet. So the tribes classes, it was interesting when we started them. For anybody that doesn't know about them, they were the smaller 24 people per class, and they began in January of 2007. And the tribes classes, we didn't know what they were either when the Beloved said, we'd like to do these 12 Tribes classes. They're smaller, they're more intimate, and they're direct experiential, where you do shield work and you do projection work and that kind of thing. And we learned as we went through the first maybe 4 12 Tribes what a 12 Tribes class was about. And during this process, every 12 Tribes, there was new information given. We tried to keep you updated as far as, the Easter workshop, at the larger workshop. We covered what had been given before when they had begun introducing what are called the vertical maps and those kind of things, and the Rachalet body anatomy. Then we had the larger Peru trip in May, and all sorts of things happened during and after that period. And we'll talk about those things as we go into the parts. You'll see where we get into some of the recent events. So when we start the itinerary for this weekend, we're going to start with the essential. It's an essential data flow that puts certain pieces you may know parts of, you may have missed parts of. It will put them in a sequence, just like a code, that will allow for an understanding, a flow of understanding to come. It's a crash course. What's taken us 6 months to learn and piece together will be literally covered in one weekend. So even if you've never had any of it, you will at least get a roundabout enough idea of what is happening, how it works. You will see by the end of the workshops why things like Rachalet body anatomy and understanding the Risha body and those kind of things, why they are important to understanding other things like a solar Bardo cycle. This solar system entered what is called a Bardo cycle, which in simple terms is its death transition cycle, star death, on March 25th of 2007 because of certain events that took place. That doesn't mean the sun's going to explode and we're all going to get vaporized or anything anytime immediately, but it does mean certain things about the potentialities for ascension or not that are left in this particular system, in this particular solar system. By the end of the workshop, we will see where, once you have the structure of understanding the creation structure and what are called the cycles. All right, there are cycles of the domains, and when you see what these cycles are, you'll begin to understand when we go into the things that are much more local, like about the solar Bardo and what that means. You'll be able to see that it will make sense. If I talk about the solar Bardo and those kind of things before having any of that structure, we'll lose you really fast. You'll just be like, what are all those words, right? Because there's a lot of new words. We have Kales and Kales all over the place in this information, if you'll notice on your itinerary. So what I want to talk about, I don't know how many people have been in the tribes classes. The tribes classes are asked to try to keep the information to themselves until the major release of the workshop, simply because if pieces of information start getting out in the wrong context and the wrong sequence, what it's going to do is confuse other people who weren't there. And what the Beloveds would like to do is for the information to be put together in a large format like they're doing here. So there may be some people who have never heard of the Rasha body and the dark matter templates. There may be some of you that have heard it before. You may have heard it when I believe we began introducing that information in the Easter workshop in Phoenix this year. There will be information that some of you have seen and some of you haven't. By tomorrow evening, we would like to have you all where we can be. Whoa, there's the sound. Yo! I didn't do that. Hold on, we're having technical difficulties. We have a message from our sponsor.
Pleased to see you brought the fairies with you all the way now.
Are you sure they're fairies and not gremlins?
Yes.
Good. Can I talk now? Is it okay, Noel? Thank you. Alrighty. Yeah, see, I knew that usually I can speak on the microphone and not have to think about speaking louder. Something was in there. Boy, did it come in loud. Anyway, sorry about that. Now, for this evening, I think I'm looking at this and trying to feel out, as I usually do. I feel out the room to get an idea of where people are as far as knowledge base and just frequency activation. And that way I can find the most important things to talk about. What I will start is a word you might not have seen before, which is the kale-hara. That is at the end word in the sentence after orientation. Teachings of the kale-hara. And I have to look at these at this point or I get tongue twisted because there's so many different ones of kales and kalis and things. Now, I will start first talking about the kale-hara. Then I will speak a little bit more about the 12 tribes of Aquafarion and the mission that they have been a part of, that they are a part of, and who they are. Right? But first, the teachings of the kale-hara. This was something that was just introduced to us for the last 12 tribes class, which was 12 tribes class 6, and that was June, right? Yes. No. July. That was July. That was July. Yeah. Right. Now,
6 anyway.
The teachings of the kale-hara are part of a set of teachings. There are technically 3, I wouldn't call it volumes, probably 3 encyclopedia sets. Each one of them is considered a book of Adashi. Now, the books of Adashi are the books of the Adashi return cycles. There are 3 Adashi ascension cycles. And in those 3 ascension cycles, there are certain very technical things that the body needs to be able to do in order to continue with those cycles and go further in genuine ascension. By the end of this workshop, you will have a much clearer understanding of what is ascension really and how it is real. It is quite a real thing, because we are getting to the point now that we are, the beloveds have said, the kale-hara teachings, or in short, it's called the Book of Kale, or the Book of Kale. All right, there's a book of Kale, a book of Shale, and a book of Ale. And those 3 books, they're like tomes. They're not just single books, right? But these are special books. They have said that in order to translate any of these books onto a planet, one has had to move through that particular cycle and fill in all the frequencies. So there's a particular activation level a being has to achieve on a planet before they will have the sequencing codes to be able to translate the books of the books of Adashi. And they've let us know that we are reaching a point that we will be able to do that. We are beginning that process. And what's nice is the Indigo Shield and the Aquafarian Shield will be joining us in that process. It has to do with an activation level called the kale-hara and the kale-hara cycle. The kale-hara cycle is something they have not told us about before, that we just learned about like yesterday and today, basically. The kale-hara cycle is something that happens at the end of a Kali Yuga. All right, it's Kali Yuga, but it's a kale-hara cycle. We will talk about the kale-hara cycle. The teachings of the kale-hara cycle and the things that go beyond there are the introductory teachings to the books of Adashi. We've been asked to change the format of how we do workshops. So we're going to go down to just 3 large ones a year, and there will be some type of the smaller private classes, but we don't know what they are yet. The beloveds haven't told us yet. But in order to begin our processes, our personal processes, some of which are physical, to be able to write these books. These are the holy books of the Adashi temples, and they are quite magical. They have to do with the teachings of what is called the first level, anyway, has to do with the teachings of the dhala-luma. That's not Dalai Lama, that's dhala-luma. All right? A Dalai Lama is something else, and you'll learn the difference between those two things and what they mean and where that word came from. And these teachings that are in the Sanskrit traditions and in the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, these teachings were all part of the extended teachings of the Mahabharata text. The Mahabharata text never translated those in physical form on earth. They have not been translated in physical form on earth. The reason we are being given the privilege on this planet to have these teachings is because they are essentially needed at this point. Because we have indeed reached the end of a Kali Yuga cycle, but not just a planetary Kali Yuga and not just a solar Kali Yuga. We are reaching the end of a universal Kali Yuga cycle. And that particular alignment of Kalis is the point where 3 distinct paths become available, and only 3. There's a point in spiritual growth and actualization where you come to understand how free will operates within the greater context of divine will. And the greater context of divine will was set from the beginning in first creation, in the physics structure, the structure of the light body, the structure of the dark matter body, and the structure of something else that we're just starting to learn about, what is called the spirit body. That is called the Risha body. Now, that's different than Rishi. All right, it's associated, but the Risha body is something that we'll learn about on Sunday, on day 2. This gets into, when we get into the teachings of the Risha body, which are only given at the end of a universal Kali Yuga cycle, in order to prepare for the Kale-hara transition, as it's known. Wait a minute, I'm getting interrupted, excuse me. So if anybody doesn't know me, I'm always on live with them when we're speaking, so sometimes I get interrupted, yeah. Okay, they want me to go to the last and start there. All right, they want me to bring something up first before I was going where I was going. Okay. Which part? Talking to them? No. Okay. Okay, you want, yeah, all right. They would like me to first, before I get into what I was talking about, mention first the techniques, if you could call them that are going to be part or at the end of this workshop. And if you'll notice, there's question marks at the end of it. It starts at 9:30 on Sunday night. When it ends, I'm not sure. We don't try to do that. This is beloved's timing. But these 3, what you could call interrelated techniques, have to do with something that together they represent what is called the Kale-hara celebration. Because there is some, all right, that's where you want me to go with it, okay. There is something very large taking place on August 12th during that full 24-hour period and its transition into the 13th. Yeah, that's why we're going to be up late. Oh, no. This is coming in live. This has never occurred on Earth before in the entire Amente rescue mission. So since Earth has been Earth and the solar system has been what it is, this is something that has, and I'm just learning this, so if I look a little confused, it's like, okay, I'm listening, then you're listening. The Kale-hara celebration has not been in our solar system before. It has three parts to it. The first part is called anchoring the Sala-Kali-Krista wave. The Sala-Kali-Krista wave. That's how you would say that. There is a wave, the Sala-Kali-Krista wave, that will be coming through, and we are going to be learning about what this wave is. This is something that whether or not we attended a workshop, whether or not we wanted to participate, this solar system is going to experience this. And it's really a celebration because it is going to move us into full Earth and our Sun into full alignment with the kale-hara transition cycle. It is through that transition cycle that the shifts are made that will allow, if ascension can occur, that is the point of turnaround, where we go into the Christ star activation levels and into the Adashi return cycles to go back home to Source. And they're cycles, like they're still, and taking your body with you is what ascension is about. All right, you can still get your spirit out. That is not considered ascension. All right, it's different because if you leave a body, you will always have to come back to at least pick up the tracer. So to fully get out of the cycles and fully have God realization, which means go back home to Source, you actually need to, at some point, take the body out with you, or you end up, at some point, going back as Partakai units, as space dust, if you end up in a completely falling system. So we are going to learn the teachings that have to do with, we've learned a little bit before about what are called the Akashi expansion cycles. And that is really how the eternal life, first creation cycles, how the cosmos is perpetually born and reborn. And we've learned about the Adashi return cycles, that after a certain level of expansion, there's a turnaround, and then you go back through into the cycles that will take you back home to first creation point and back into the source consciousness field, or God source consciousness field. There's that little turnaround point that is a very special cycle. And there are two parts to this cycle. One is called if I can remember them, the Kali-Krista. And then when that is fulfilled, the second part of that shift is called the Kale-Krystar. These are the two cycles of activation that a body or consciousness needs to go through in order to make the Adashi turnaround, to enter the Adashi cycles, to go back. At that point where those two cycles are running, where a system is going into them, and you can't go into those fully unless, if you're just a person on a planet, you would have to wait and actually have your body, with the right coding, on the planet at the time that the planet was aligning with minimum of a solar level of this turnaround cycle. And that would get you into the next density. This is a universal one. This is the big turnaround, where we actually get to go fully back and fully enter the cycles. There's a lot more to understand at those points as far as what to do with the body. There's also things to understand that some people won't take the bodies, but you can, there are certain things you can do that there is one way, all right, they're just telling me this, there is one way that if a body can't fully make the turnaround. In a hosting situation, a hosting planet or a hosting solar system, there are options, and we will have those options for, I think it came out to be 223 years, something like that. So on this planet, there will be 223 years of an option to, if you had to incarnate again, you wouldn't get stuck in the cycles of fall or the cycles of what are called rebirth or backstep. There is a backstep cycle, a front step cycle, a forward step, which is the ascension step, and there is a fall cycle. They are the three options that a system has, a solar system or a galaxy or a universe has, when the full end of a universal Kali Yuga cycle occurs and we enter that turnaround phase. So we're going to learn about these. First, we're going to learn about the creation structure that within which this takes place, so we can understand the basics, like this is a crash course in ascension, basically. The Kali teachings are exciting in that it allows for an opportunity of a rapid healing potential that wasn't here before and wouldn't be here otherwise if it weren't for the fact that we are going into these cycles. Now, going into this alignment with the universal Kali Yuga end, which is the universal kale-hara cycle. This is an event that would have taken place quite far in the future of this solar system and of this planet if it weren't for the fact of the things that have been going on here since the stellar activation started in 2000. But it was known a long time ago that it may go this way. So the plans were laid that in the event that it's almost like if something is falling, there's a point where the Christic races and the ones who teach and hold these teachings for systems that are going into fall, there's a point of mercy where it's like, fine, you just let it go and see if they can fix it on the planet. But if they can't, you let it fall because you can't fix it at that point, and it's better to not make the misery longer. And that is what has occurred here, where there were certain things that could have dragged it out longer. We could have maybe gone to 4,230 AD and then gone through this. But by then, there wouldn't have been anything left on the planet as far as gene codes that could run and open the gates that are required to participate in the kale-hara cycles. So in one way, it is sad the way the events occurred since 2000, when there was a chance to turn the drama on this planet and in the solar system around. But there wasn't enough people. There weren't enough people in human, angelic human form, even with the indigos that did wake up. There weren't enough of us to pay attention. There weren't enough of us to make changes, and the saturation of fallen angelic consciousness and field possession here was to such an extreme that the chances were very slim that we were going to fix it anyway. So we have entered a more rapid alignment of our solar system with the universal kale-hara. And it actually is a celebration. It is a good thing because it means that we can finally get the full spread of the Ascension teachings back. We can begin taking the steps that are required in order to get us as healed as possible, in order to participate in the path of the three that we would like to be on. And it will just prevent this place from experiencing another 2,000 years of absolute misery and potentially even worse conditions of fall. The solar bardo was something that the beloveds knew was a potential. Now, technically, our sun should have quite a few billion years left of hydrogen fuel to burn before it dies. Stars only die if they can't regenerate their supply, if they can't starfire. A natural starfire allows stars, the fuel of stars, to regenerate, so they will stay burning, so they never die. There are some stars that never die. They are ascension stars. What we call planets are really stars whose coronosphere is turned off because something's wrong with their Templar. All right. So planets, as we know them, and when I talk about things about stars, I'm also talking about planets, because planets are supposed to have a coronosphere. And yes, you can live in certain biome fields within what appears to be a sun or a star on the outside. But anyway, we are going to learn a bit more about what a bardo is, first of all, this death transition. It's a very specific death transition. It's the way to not get your spirit stuck in your matter transition. All right? Because when there's certain ways of, there are certain ways of passing into incarnations and realms and out of them. And there are ways that are natural in the kryst, as far as in the eternal life creation cycles. And a natural bardo is where you don't end up with any of the spirit consciousness trapped in the body. It's able to go. Now, the full natural way to leave a system isn't bardo, it's ascension. And that's taking the body with you, transmuting it through what's called transfiguration. The Adashi cycles I've mentioned are cycles of transfiguration. There are 3, but there is one very large transfiguration that begins in those 2 pre-cycles, that turnaround point. And that is what they're going to teach us about. This is where we learn about something called the dhala-luma. It's not a someone, it's a something. Well, everything is conscious, so I'm sure it's a someone too, but it's not, some person in Tibet sitting on a mountain. It's something much larger. We are going to go through those of us who wish to participate. And if you don't want to participate, you don't have to, but the planet and the solar system are going through it. So the frequencies are going to be here. There is an advantage in choosing to participate, because what you do is prepare your fields to handle that energy when it comes in. Because if your fields aren't prepared to handle it, it depends on what activations levels you're holding in the DNA as to whether those changed or altered radiation levels that are going to be coming from the sun, whether or not they will actually help you to more quickly cellular regenerate, or whether they will push your system over the edge and into things like cancers and illnesses. So it's a dose of preventative medicine as well as beginning the process of entering on a personal level the kale-hara cycle. To participate in a kale-hara, it has always been a celebration. That was when natural kale-haras occur, and that's when they occur in systems after they've, not necessarily fall systems, where it's just a natural part of once you get to an end of a universal Kali Yuga. That is the next part, the kale-hara. And the fall parts that's when their space dust thing begins. But the natural part is to go through, do the turnaround through the kale-hara and the Kali-Krystar, and then move into the Adashi cycles. So it's a very strange position we're in, because we can look at what could be perceived as the sadness aspect of, oh dear, something has happened to the core of our sun, and it is actually beginning its death cycle. If the sun, our central sun, is doing its death cycle, nothing in the solar system is going to be an ascension planet after that. The sun is not ascending. All right. So we will understand what that means more. Now, there's the sadness quotient, where it seems like a bad and horrible and sad thing. But on the same token, we're coming into the kale-hara celebration, which always was a celebration, because it was a celebration of the turnaround, of the ascension, of going back up. And what it is the beginning of is the re-spiritualization of matter. And the re-spiritualization refers to de-densification through the process of Christic transfiguration. This is what the Bible had little snippets of here and there. This is what Jeshua tried to teach in John, and many of us before that. So these are part of the eternal teachings. It is a celebration to have those teachings brought back on the planet. I didn't know until yesterday. First of all, Kale what? Right? It's like when I said, here, spell it. Right? Okay. So I spelled it. I said, great. What is a kale-hara? Right. So they gave me the crash course in what is the kale-hara, which we will be giving to you as I learn the rest of it through this workshop. But there was such a feeling of celebration, because this is the point where a system that reaches the end of its universal Kali Yuga actually gets to rejoin the cosmic community of the eternal life races and beings and systems that are part of the Adashi cycles. And there's a huge amount of joy associated with it. So it's kind of funny how we have a fall and a rise, almost the two extremes sitting right next to each other, and we are now moving into it. What they told me, though, and this was a surprise, I knew something was up, because they wouldn't give me anything on what we were teaching for this workshop at all. Usually at least get a 3-day heads up, like, here, at least a title, just a clue to know what diagrams to bring. They said nothing until yesterday. And that's because there was a big secret, and that's that on August 12th, we officially enter that cycle. This solar system will enter the Kale-hara cycle. And there's a lot of things to learn about what this means and what potentials it means for the people who come to workshops, but also for the rest of the planet and the other life fields here. Because there's an opportunity for healing that wouldn't have been achieved otherwise. So some of the beings, be they human form or plants or trees or bugs or whatever, the other forms that might not have been able to make an ascension and it would have been caught in a fall because of the kale-hara cycle, and because the teachings of the Kale-umshatare, which are how to handle a kale-hara cycle and beyond, are being given, these beings will be able to begin a healing process if they so choose. So there's a healing program coming out, and it's a self-healing program. And they're getting us ready for that. I think they're going to start it in Virginia Beach, and the next part of it's going to be in the Netherlands when we do that workshop. But this is something that you could use. You could do kale-hara, but this part of it you could only teach to someone to do for themselves. And it involves the Merkaba and the chakras and all sorts of things I don't know yet. They just had me do some base diagrams, so I'm going to find that out for Sunday. But the potential, we have never been closer to the potential of clearing the mutation that has been decimating our races on this planet since Atlantis and before. If we are successful, we will be able to use the radiation that comes from the sun in a new way in our bodies. Not quite photosynthesis, not exactly like plants. We're not going to get green blood and start being like plants. But there is a process involved in the de-densification or the re-spiritualization of matter that allows radiation to be breathed. There are certain races that have been known as visitors here from elsewhere that aren't ET. They just live in the ascension domains. And when they visit here, they've been known as the light eaters. And it's not because they take light away or do anything bad to it. They're also known as breatharians, which is what a light eater is. All right? We talk about breatharians that don't have to eat or drink because their bodies are completely sustained just by breathing. What they are breathing is light. They are literally, light becomes food. The radiation becomes food. And it's not just solar radiation. It's also the radiation that would come from a natural living planet and those kind of things. So we're going to learn a little bit about the beginning process of that. At the end of the workshops, they're going to give us a clue about what this, what did they call it here? Where is it? The, something or other, crystal heart healing. Oh, crystal heart solar healing? Yeah, it takes me a while to find stuff because my eyes are bad. There we go. Where is that? Crystal heart healing.
At the bottom of the page,
yeah, it's at the bottom here somewhere. It's not that one.
This is the last one, isn't it?
No. There we go, solar healing. Yeah, the Crystal Heart Solar Healing Programs. These are going to be the beginning of where they're going to teach us how to do certain activations in our bodies and in our chakra systems that will allow us to begin the de-densification process. At some point in time, there will be dietary recommendations and those kind of things. I know that they were joking with me because they just did a thing with me where I had to try this. And we're not officially trying this yet. I'm the guinea pig first, right? That's how we always work with this stuff, be it the fitness program or anything. I'm always the guinea pig first. Az and I, we kind of end up playing guinea pig together. But they asked me to go on a fast, right? Just a liquid fast. I said, okay. I mean, they never had said to do that before, so it was like, okay, I will do that. It wasn't a long one. And it's actually broken down into it's by hours, right? And in this process, they started talking to me, just saying little things like, do you know what the stage is between a solidarian and a breatharian? And I said, no. And I said, think about it. And they said, a liquefarian. Right? So is that like an aquafarian? Kinda. Right? So they will eventually, in these healing in this new healing program, that will be very kale-hara compatible, but it will be something that you can only teach to if you had a kale-hara, if you were giving kale-hara sessions for people. You could still do those, but the stages that go into the crystal heart healing programs, you would be able to teach them, but not do it for them. So nobody else can mess with them. Nobody else can mess with your body. It becomes your body becomes your responsibility, where you don't have to get anybody else to fix it for you in that way. Now you still go to doctors if you need to. We're not saying run away from the medical community, stop eating, and everybody develop an eating disorder. No, right? No. In fact, that's the opposite of what we want to do. There is a way, and it's a progressive, a slow, gentle way to get the body systems used to different types of consumption habits. This planet is absolutely plagued with a major eating disorder. Massive consumption. I mean, 3 heavy meals a day is a huge amount of food. However, if you're a body that doesn't have its natural systems turned on and it can't run the primal life force currents very well, you need to get mana to run your body cells from elsewhere. And that is where it was actually the programs that have become the norm on this planet have been set progressively by the fallen angelics here since as part of the Atlantean conspiracy. We're so dense at this point that some people can't hold it. Some people go into where the body rejects it, and they go into eating disorders where they get like anorexia nervosa and those kind of things. Other people go in the other direction where, like, no matter how much I don't eat, it keeps getting bigger, these kind of things. These are part of the mass consumption mania that we have been programmed into, both psychologically but also biologically through the mutations in the DNA. As we begin to move through, as these solar frequencies are going to be changing because the changes the sun is going to go through with these cycles, the body is going to react differently, A, to the sun, and B, to what you put in it. So we're getting to a point where we need to learn about things that will support our process of healing and that we can actually use to begin supporting the body better, and what things are going to cause us problems. I know I was going through a period where, even though we don't eat much anyway, as far as we don't do the 3 meals a day heavy thing and that kind of thing. Once in a while, if we have company over, we'll do like an English breakfast, which is like dinner at breakfast time. It's really good. But for the most part, on our day-to-day lives, we have maybe like a little bit of juice or something in the morning, and then have dinner, and that's it. And I've just been noticing over the last 6 months, even dinner isn't settling, where it's starting to make me feel sick. And it's like everything turns to air. And it's like I blow up in the middle and it's stuck, right? And what is wrong with my body? Yeah. And they started to explain that at a certain level of frequency in the bodies, with certain levels of the DNA, this was before they gave talked about the Kali cycles and that kind of stuff. When you get to a certain point in activations, certain foods are just not compatible, certain substances are just not compatible, and progressively, solids will become less compatible. Not completely not compatible. However, when you get to the point where you're going to complete the full Adashi turnaround, we have quite a long time before we have to worry about the full turnaround, because it's going to take, I believe the cycle is 223 years. Right, and some of us that make it may actually still be in these same bodies in 223 years going, oh my God, I can't believe I got it through. Right? Others will actually, if their bodies can't do it this time, there is a very quick, I believe, Aquafarian incarnation cycle here that will take us in there as Aquafairy, where we will be able to do it in the Aquafairy body. So you don't have to be scared of, oh my God, I don't think my body can make it. But anyway, we will progressively learn, and part of the teachings of the Kale-hara teach about all sorts of very practical things, like how to de-densify a body without turning it inside out and killing it. Because if you don't do it right, I mean, you should just decide, I'm going to be a breatharian now. Well, you better hope you got some Kali activating in there, because if you don't, you're going to end up, starving to death, and your body will get sick. And that is not what ascension is about. It's not about starving yourself to death. It's not about de-densifying until you evaporate and die of beriberi or something. It's like, it is a process by learning to work with the body. And they did say that progressively, and you can start playing with this gently, where just for some of your meals, substitute just liquid meals. That doesn't mean pond scum either. You don't have to drink the nasty green live food stuff, all right? Now, it's probably very good for you. And at some point, it can help in certain ways, but some of it is actually not what it appears to be. And if you have an aversion to it, trust that. If you happen to like it, there's something in that that's working for you, that's okay. But if you have an aversion to it, don't worry about, oh my God, I'm not going to ascend because I can't drink that pond scum stuff. Right? I call it pond scum affectionately because it looks like it, and it smells like it, and pretty much it tastes like it. And there's all sorts of brands you can get now. There are other ways to give the body liquid nutrition. All right, nutrition is what it comes down to. The body does need calories, it needs proteins, it needs fats right now. Now there will be a certain point where, what do we eat for? We eat basically to get fuel in our bodies so cellular process can continue, so we stay alive. All of that cellular process, even like what do we eat proteins for? What are proteins? They're amino acids. It's all about synthesis of amino acids in order to sustain cellular process. And at some point, when a person becomes, fully ascends and goes into Christ star activation, just from light, even if it's dark, because there is radiation, electromagnetic radiation, even when the sun isn't shining. So it is that electromagnetic radiation that is the food that allows for the natural amino acids and things to be built that sustain cellular process. So we're going to be one of the few places in the local galaxy in the Milky Way that are going to be taught about this, how to do it, how to participate in it, and to be able to teach others who might care to listen here or there out there on the planet. At this point, there's not a lot of people who really want to listen. Life is too busy, and it's going to get probably really strange here in the next 40 years. There's probably going to be a war between the Red Dragon team and the teams and the Green Dragon teams, and it's probably not going to be pretty. There will probably be earth changes, and some of them quite severe. But we will also have the advantage of what's called the Ascension Earth, because the Ascension Earth, with the early activations that have made it where 12 Tribes 2 classes don't even need to happen because of the expedited program. We are, here we go again, they're interrupting me again. Well, excuse me. Go to part 3, all right. See, this is my cheat sheet too. So go to part 3. Spirit Ascension, kale-hara, all right. Yes, what do you want me to talk about? There's something here they want me to talk about. Okay. Kale-Krista, is that what, Krista? That's what you want me to talk about. Okay. They want me to go to the word Kale-Krista. All right, the Kale-Krista activation is what we are first preparing for. And that I have, they've given me the timelines, and hopefully, if there's any handout except for this workshop, which means typeset, which we usually don't have the luxury of anymore, I will try to at least get that where it's coherent enough to be typeset and you have it, because it gives a glimpse of the present and the future about what this is going to look like, about when, what type of things are going to happen, and when we are preparing for what. So the workshop will be about understanding, first of all, the context in which all of this is taking place, the cosmic, not just structure, but the cycles of evolution through them. And then we will go into the anatomy sufficiently to at least grasp the beginnings of what it means to enter a Kalahari cycle with the intention of ascension, which means taking the body with you. All right. There are 2 other paths that, well, there's also the fact that it's a hosted ascension that we're going through, and that's why we have a period of time where an incarnation into an aquafarian regenesis body for people who couldn't take this body with them, where they don't get stuck. But there are 2 other things that we're going to learn about, and one of them, I've tried to remember these here, by Sunday I'll know them. Oh, there's something called the Kali-Rama cycle and the Kali-Dima cycle. All right, these 2 other cycles go with what is called the Kale-Krista cycle. The Kale-Krista cycle is the path of ascension. The Kali-Rama cycle is what is known as the path of rebirth, or step back, where you get to do it over again because you weren't able to take your body out this time, but you didn't fall. And then there is called the Kali-Dima, which is the path of fall. There will be portions of this solar system, this planet, this life field here, that take each of those paths. We are preparing for the Kale-Krista, which is the ascension path. This will get into what we've talked about before in, I think we introduced slide zones in Easter, didn't we? I think. All right. Yeah. Right? This is where we start to understand where the things like slide zones and the aurora fields that we've been talking about since Easter, what they have to do with this. Because through those things, they actually form what is called the ascension Earth. They're going to form a literal holographic double, sort of double, of this planet. It's part of this planet. It would look like Earth in the future or the past, before all of this came here, before it all got corrupted. It's actually a three-dimensional field, just like Earth is a three-dimensional field, that is part of the template of Earth and part of the template of our host star called Eartha. And it literally is a planet, well, star, that has been born recently through the activations that have been taking place in the solar system. This is the place where ascension can occur from. This is the place that is still part of Earth right now, that ascension can occur from. There's going to come a point where Earth and the other planets in the solar system have made a choice as a consciousness field that they are to enter the kale-hara cycle, which is better than the path of fall, which is the kale-luma cycle. So the people who are on the ascension paths before that period of this solar system entering kale-hara, they need to get out, or they'll end up going kale-hara, the back step path, instead of the ascension path. So we are literally on the final waves. We've got a 223-year period of ascension of everything from this solar system that can go. So these are the teachings that will begin our process of, first of all, understanding how does that work, and of getting the teachings of the Kali-Yuga down. They've said with the books of the Adashi books, holy books, that in order to, say, do the first one, which is the Kali-Yuga, in order to do that one, a person, in order to translate it any place, a person has to go through that and hit a minimum of what is called the Kali Krysta activation. Before we can begin getting the text down, we have to go through those first. Those are the texts that will teach you how to do that. So we have to go through them, well, blind, but at least with ears on, where we can hear the beloveds directly. We are entering that path. And as we do, because the three speakers actually sit at the center of the indigo shield and the aquafarian shield here, what activates in our systems will at a certain point automatically release into the shield. So you will be joining us in preparing for these activations, and through that we will be able to begin getting the books in writing. Because once the books are in writing, it's like, it would be really sad if Voyagers was the only thing we had as our equivalent to the Bible. No, it's a piece of the history books. You know, and an emergency heads-up notice, right? Voyagers is a good book. That was the beginning. We've not had time to take written form of any of the teachings for the past 4 years, something like that. Yeah, there's nothing. And these are the teachings that, as far as, when you look at holy books of the religions that are on this planet right now, there's always something in the holy books that is comforting and soothing, and it helps a person, whatever their religion, to feel closer to that God source, to give them some practical framework for day-to-day living and those kind of things. That's what these books will do, except they will do it in a way that is helping you to understand daily living in terms of entering ascension cycle and following ascension cycle. So they're going to be the three books are the equivalent of well, I wouldn't say that I put that wrong. They're not the equivalent of the Bible. They are huge compared to the Bible or the Quran or any of the holy books of any of the religions here. The Mahabharata texts were huge, and they were just the outer domain ascensions. These are ascension through the core domains. These are the big ones. And I don't know if we will ever get here to be able to translate the second one that has to do with, that's the book of Shale, where this one will be the book of Kale. The next was the book of Shale. I do believe that one will probably be translated on Ascension Earth, which is in the slide zone fields, when that time comes. So the first thing is the Kale books that will get us to the slide zone fields, the New Earth hosted ascension. And by the end of this workshop, we will hopefully understand more about this whole process, how all these words fit together, what they apply to, because they're parts of anatomy of cosmic structure. When we talk about the Kale and the Kali and those kind of things, they fit into the natural first creation cycles and the natural eternal life cycle of the Kryst or the Christ star cycles. So it will make more sense. The little things that I've talked about just briefly here will make more sense once we have a look at the structure and also see where something called the spirit body comes in. Now, we've talked about light body structure for ages now. We've had crystal body structure, light body structure, the starborn cycle, all of this. We've learned that the soul is just a small part of the light body structure that holds a certain part of our consciousness and density too. What we didn't learn before, but there's a difference between what is called the spirit and the soul. We have a soul, an oversoul, an avatar, a rishi in the outer domain light body structure. They're just the outer domain light body structures. They're tiny compared to what is known as the spirit, which is different than the soul. The spirit is eternal, and we have to get out here in the first place into manifestation requires a spiritual body, a spirit body called the Risha body, to be born first before the Taran, before the first light seed. From that and within it, the light body forms, and from that and within it, the matter body forms. So we are finally getting the teachings about the dhala-luma, which is the doorway of spirit light that takes you from here into what is known as the spirit body. So we're going to, this will be the first information we've been given on what is the spirit body. And the spirit body is the key to understanding certain things. And I'm just starting to get this down, so I'll see how far we get this workshop. But by understanding the light body, the Rasha body, which is the dark matter body, and the spirit body, we begin to understand where the forces of nature come from, like the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, the electromagnetic force, and the gravity force. And there's a certain ratio of balance that occurs that allows for manifestation and the formation of matter. If you are going to de-densify matter or re-spiritualize matter, it helps to understand a little bit about how matter is made in the first place. And this has to do with ratios. And in simple terms, you could look at it as a ratio between the amount of energy and consciousness moving into manifestation from the first creation point and the amount of spirit body pulling it back. In this ratio is where we find what is called the G-force, the force of gravity. There is a point called the zero G point. And that is the point where you actually can pull into the Risha body and make the turnaround in order to go to the Adashi cycles. So we're going to be learning about a little bit right now, but more as these works progress, about, well, simple things that once you learned how to, let's say you got your body, the matter of your body spiritualized sufficiently, that you could reach a zero G point. And that would mean that the spirit pull and the manifestation push, or the mane push of energy in your light body became equal and neutralized each other. This has to do with Merkabahs. This has to do with opposite spin sets, always. Same speed, opposite spin sets, where the differential is gone. And that has to do with activation of all sorts of things in the chakra systems, the axiotonal lines, the light body, which allows you literally to de-densify sufficiently to take your matter from what right now is 3/3 manifest and 0 spirit, and you'll see what that means in relation to the structure of creation, back into the Adashi 1 state, going through Christ star activation, of 2/3 manifest, 1/3 pull back into spirit. We'll see how these thirds have to do with the process of the creation cycles as we move through the information we're going to be covering here. And we'll begin to find not only our soul, but our spirit. And the spirit is the driving force of all of it. The dhala-luma is a part of the spirit-body anatomy that connects to the light-body and matter-body anatomy. The dhala-luma, dale means doorway of spirit light, and doorway of spirit light and illumination, the luma, the illumination. The illumination is something that comes once the dhala is opened. The illumination has to do with frequencies that come from the spirit body and blend with what is called the eye of God structure. Now, we're going to cover what that is too. After we get through Rashabadi, and a quick review of Rashabadi, or a quick introduction to it, depending on if you've heard of it before, we'll go into what's called the Akushate matrix. And this is where we learn about a construct of before the light body builds. It is something that happens after the first Partakai 1 and Partakai 2, but before the birth of the Taran. There is something called the Eye of God structure that is formed. Now, this is how the cosmos forms, but you are a microcosmic version of the cosmos, so you have these structures too. Tomorrow evening, we will go through an essential activation journey. It is a projection, or what we call a glide, where you learn to take your consciousness into a Rashabadi state, even though your physical body still has to stay here because you haven't spiritualized the matter yet. And you can project. Now, we've been doing projections in the tribe classes. This one was one of the most powerful ones I've ever experienced, and as thought so too, and a lot of people who experienced it felt the same. The reason it's important to do it is because in going through this projection journey, it will actually activate the corresponding currents that go with those particular structures that you'll move through in the journey. It will activate that in your fields. And in order to take the next steps where you can actually anchor the Sala-Kali Krista wave, which is the beginning of preparing your body to be able to handle the natural radiation and use it for healing instead of letting it, be a problem for your body. We need to go through first the Eye of God journey in order to do the shield activations. And it is a really neat journey. I think it takes about an hour. And it will be run from the original, when the original was given. Because every time an original technique is given, particularly a journey, there is a wave released for the first time into the planetary fields and into the Aquafarian shield. And that live wave, that's why we record them, and we will use the ones from the point where it was released, so you get the frequencies coming through on the activation, which you would not get on a repeat of it. You can get a step down of it, and eventually there'll be programs that are stepped down and once you've got the main activation, if you're somebody who's consciously playing with Ascension with us, then it would be like a top up, just keeping the energy, the subharmonics built. But for mass release, for out to the public, people who don't want to hear about Voyagers, don't want to hear about most of the things we teach, we're going to do some simple meditation journeys that will fill in the subharmonics to allow people who are guided from their own higher parts to get them and just use them without any of the mental body confrontation about what it's all about. Enjoy the journey, and they'll be able to pick up the frequency for a host to do that if they're meant to. But in the meantime, when we're asked to, we will use the recording from the time it was released. So you will get that wave as if that wave is being brought into the current time. That journey that will be tomorrow night will prepare us for the big journeys that are Sunday night, Monday morning, early. And these are the anchoring of the Sala-Kali Krista wave. And the word Sala, by the way, refers to Sala 4, which is Universal Stargate 4 in this Veka system. It is not falling, just like Universal Stargate 3, Eartha, is not falling. We'll talk about, before we get to there, we'll talk about how Earth and our sun, Sol, from the Amente Rescue Mission, are hosting. Our sun is hosting inside of a star called Sala. Sala holds Universal Stargate 4. That's why we've always called our sun Universal Stargate 4, because it is actually hosting in the star at a different angular rotation of particle spin. Same with Earth and Eartha. Earth is actually inside of a larger star called Eartha. And it's a different angular rotation of particle spin. That's why we can't see it yet. As we work through these cycles and progressively get into the spiritualization or respiritualization of our matter, we will progressively become more able to experience Eartha directly. And we're going to, for anyone that hasn't heard any of this information yet, where you don't know what the vertical maps are yet, we will cover those so you will have an understanding of, oh, that doesn't sound so nuts after all. What do you mean we're inside of a star? Right? They can send things way up in outer space and doesn't run into any star on the way out. You know? Well, they're not sending it at an angular rotation of particle spin at which it would run into Eartha, because it's a different one than we're at. But we are in the same space, and we are a small planet inside of a large living star, a star that is going to star fire, which means go back in, pull into its next domain, and then come back out again. All right, which I wonder if that, it's going to, right. It is going through its own Adashi return. And so is Sala with it. And so is Sirius B and Andromeda in our system, or parts of these systems. So we're going to find out what all of those things mean. That's the big planetary, galactic, universal stuff, and then bring it back in to the bodies that we have here, and prepare them first of all to deal with the onset of the kale-hara, because that begins on Sunday. And it is something, once it begins, there is no turning back. And it's not something that, it's not beginning because the beloveds are saying, okay, let's push a button and start it now. It's because of the way the natural energy works when certain frequencies are reached in a universal Vecca system. It will trigger. If we have reached in this universal Vecca system the same or co-resonant vibration of the end of the universal Kali Yuga cycle. So once that vibration sounds, all of this begins to happen. So with the information that we're going to be learning, we're going to, first of all, learn a little bit more about the sun and what it might or might not do in the more immediate terms. We've got 223 years before we have to worry about it going into the nova cycle. There's a cycle that now it has entered called the Bardo cycle. And right after that, there's a part of the Bardo cycle that's actually called the Bardet. And the Bardet, we're going to learn about. That was new information that they just gave us. And after the Bardet cycle is when the Nova cycle begins. We're not going to be here when the Nova cycle begins. In fact, most things probably won't be here when the Nova cycle begins. But we are here now that the Bardo cycle has begun. And we're going to learn what we can do with our bodies to deal with the new radiation that will be coming from the sun. In a Bardo cycle, the sun releases what are called Rasha ring waves. Once we understand Rasha body anatomy a little bit better, and on a planetary or star level, you'll understand what a Rasha refers to. Refers to the dark matter template structure. There are particular ring waves that there'll be about one a year that will be released from the core of the sun, of our sun soul, and they will be released and form gamma bursts. And the first one is due in spring of 2008. Now, they will start weak, but then progressively build and get stronger. If it weren't for the fact of what's called the Crystal River host that's being run on in this system, since for a very long time, the Mente Rescue Mission was part of it. If it wasn't for that, we would have very little time left. Within 50 years, the radiation bursts or the gamma bursts coming from the sun would be so strong it would decimate everything alive on this planet. We don't have to worry about that now because of the Crystal River host and what the beloveds, the ones we refer to as the beloveds, are doing, the Christic races are doing to assist us through this cycle. So it's not going to change the fact that the gamma bursts will come. It's just how strong will they be, and how soon will they be strong to the point where that's a problem. We may begin in the next few years, which shouldn't be bad, but this will go on till I believe 2024, where the ring waves will release one a year. Moving toward 2024, they will be at their strongest period. If a person or a life form on a planet doesn't have certain things activated between their rasha bodies, their light bodies, and their atomic bodies, and their spirit bodies, the radiation levels will become toxic. So, by the group of us here that is known as the Indigo Shield, by us as a collective activating the natural structures that will allow us to take that radiation and actually transmute it into light food into our bodies. As we progress with this, we are actually bringing the potential down into the earth field so it can reach it can reach the angelic human shield, and it can reach the animal kingdoms and the plant kingdoms. So it will allow for a huge protection. That doesn't mean there's not going to be some weird things, particularly as we move from 2009 through 2012 and through 2015 might be a little hairy. I'm just getting feelings for like little dots on the graph. As these waves progress and intensify, and also as the fallen angelic drama on this planet continues and the red and green dragon groups get into it with each other, these things can affect the severity of the protection fields that are being brought here right now run from Eartha and Sala down here. So we may see some things that are very unpleasant. We may see the fact, one of the first things that they said we might notice are there will be new things found, new bacteria and bugs and things that were dormant for millions of years on this planet. But this new radiation, these gamma bursts, are of a certain type of frequency that will reactivate them. So they have said before that we are beginning to enter the period of the plagues that was talked about in the Bible. Now, we don't have to be in the plagues. We might have to watch it, but we don't have to succumb to them. And the more people that we can get interested and involved in, even on a simple level of running the natural ascension activations, the more protection it will be for everybody else and everything else on this planet. You can't activate somebody else's spirit body. Only they can do that. But you can teach them. And if you've been doing kale-hara or something like that, it's the next step in kale-hara. It's where you teach them to heal themselves and give the responsibility for it back to them with a darn good way to do it. Right? So here, go home and do this, and this will do this, right? So there are a lot of ways that we can assist as a Christic group on this planet, with this planet and the solar system facing something that it's been known for a long, long time, since Atlantis and way before, that it was very possible this point in time would come for this system. But to be sitting in the middle of it with as little knowledge as we have can be very frightening. Most of the planet doesn't want to know anymore. They really don't care. They're much happier with, like, going to church on Sunday and then being bad the rest of the week and going back and saying, I'm sorry, 6 Hail Marys, whatever, I feel bad because people, in my family, we have, part of them were Protestant and part of them were Catholic. It was kind of like a holy war right in the family, and part of them were dragging me to Catholic Mass, and the other were dragging me to Protestant services, and we just felt all of them were, the devotion of the people was lovely. Because it really was a heartfelt connection to God. And they don't have anything higher that they remember or what they saw with their family. You were raised Catholic. A lot of people, I was raised Catholic, so I'm just going to be Catholic. I mean, anything else and God might get mad at you, whatever you're raised with. And this is just in the Christian groups. There are probably millions, if not billions, of people that are like Buddhist and Muslim. They take that just as seriously. We're all looking for the same thing. We're all turning to books that don't tell the whole truth anymore. In fact, they never really did. But it's that same love of Source. It's that same desire to want to go home. If we can bring to people, it doesn't matter what religion you are. You can hang on to whatever religion you are. Go to church and beam your Risha body. When we start these activations, you'll become like a walking dhala-luma. You'll be able to just transmit the frequencies. You can't transmit what you don't have activated yourself. But as you progressively activate them, you can walk where angels and fallen angelics fear to tread, anywhere, and just be yourself. Let people be who they are. Don't worry about explaining things, because there's some people who don't want to hear it at all. Some people, they might actually want to hear it, but they've got so much field company that it would actually cause them harm to even try to get through to them. They're better off left in whatever paradigm, even if it's atheist, that they're in. But you can still love them. Love is a state of vibrational harmonization. Find the parts that you can relate to. Don't worry about the parts that you can't, where you might not see eye to eye. And just hold the field. And if there's anything in their system that is left, that's genuinely them, and on a Krystic path that can ascend, you will trigger that. And they will be guided in whatever weird way. They might find some interesting meditation tapes on some New Age bookshelf in a few years, whatever. But know that just by walking the planet, you can bring that healing frequency, that potential of being able to not have a bad reaction to the gamma bursts that are going to be coming off the sun, of being able to use them to begin the process of healing, to begin using certain frequencies from those gamma bursts to actually, if you're a person who's sick, or you can teach a person who's sick, eventually they're going to teach us these things, how to go after things like cancer, all right, before it goes after you. If people have cancer and those kind of things, and there's a lot of people that are starting to have reactions because of the mutations in the body, you hit a certain level of frequency, they did this to our bodies so they'd self-destruct before we could ascend. But we have the ability to override that now because of the activations that are coming through the sun, that will come through on what is called the Sala-Kali-Krista wave. That is the beginning of having enough frequency where now they'll start giving us the technologies about how to assist in healing certain illnesses within the self, how to support whatever your doctor's doing. That's fine. It doesn't mean run away from your doctor. It means being able to give a very strong level of spiritual support and frequency support to that healing process. So this is almost like when we started these teachings this time in 2000, or actually 1999, and the book started to come out in 1997. But 2000 was like the official bringing out. Since the time we brought that out, it's almost like we went through a whole 6 cycle. And this was that 7th transition period. We've finished a tachyon cycle with the work. The work is coming full circle. And when it comes full circle, it will either go and disappear or jump up to the next level. This is the jump up to the next level. It is the next level of the ascension teachings. And I hope that by the end of this workshop, I can't even find words to describe. There is such a joy and a relief and an excitement that I felt when they started to give me this information today. I hope that somehow we can transmit that to you with enough understanding where you see what the pieces mean and how the basic thing works. We have quite a while to learn how to work with this, but this is a transition phase. We are entering a big transition phase, a universal level one, a solar one, a planetary one, and with the work as well. These are the most precious teachings that anyone in the Akashi systems, particularly the outer domain Kale systems, could ever have, because they are the teachings of how to do the turnaround, how to de-densify the matter, how to re-spiritualize, even without drinking pond scum. And just most people that are trying to do that, there's not exactly a set formula, but there's all sorts of interesting dietary changes that people put themselves through. Just like there's a lot of nasty kundalini activations people put themselves through and have really bad experiences and things because they're activating stuff out of sequence. Well, diet works the same way here. They've said for a while, because I know there are books that list, first of all, there are registers that every life form on this planet, somewhere it is known and it's actually recorded. There are libraries that record exactly where they came from, what they are, what consciousness is in them, whose they are, be they fallen angelic or not, right? They said it would scare us to death if they gave us those books right now at our current stage of consciousness and our current dependence on, biological dependence on the necessity of food. They said we'd all very rapidly die of eating disorders because we'd stop, right? So they haven't given us that information yet. By the time we get to see those records, like fully, we'll be beyond the need to be grossed out by what we're actually ingesting into our bodies, that kind of thing. Right. So anyway, it is a big story. We've got another one of those crash course in from the first part of Kai through to full ascension, full loop in 2 days and an hour and a half. Right? It's a crash course again. They're giving us this information. I've never seen the data come in like the waves that it does. And what's so hard is a lot of it is on security clearance. This one was, and I was thinking, oh, now what? Because you're not even giving me anything, not even a title. What am I teaching tomorrow? I had a terrible week. I always have a really, really rotten week, but sometimes worse than others. When you can feel activations flying in the grids, you can feel there's these waves I call depression waves that I could feel running in the planetary. So what is this stuff? They said, you don't want the 40 pages right now to know. You'll know when it's time. It's like, oh no. They have said that as of July 1st, councils have given an edict of what is called a privatization order. Now, that doesn't mean we keep the teaching secret into ourselves. It means we give a set format of, well, for now, the 3 main large workshops a year. They'll show us what smaller classes to do. Among that, the smaller classes have a purpose. We can give more direct frequency and direct attention to a smaller group of people and a small shield than we can to 300 people in a room. It will also allow for the beginnings of projections that eventually probably go into slide training. A projection is called a glide, where you activate your Rasha body and you take your consciousness out and ride with it. A slide is where you activate your physical body enough where you can shift from the angular rotation of particle spin here into what is called the aurora slide zone, or the ascension Earth slide zone. That is a space that is lower in frequency than Eartha, and it is higher in frequency than Earth. So we will begin eventually, they haven't said when, but we will begin direct sliders training, and they will be done in small groups. Probably because, well, they asked me the other day, if you were in our position, up here, we're on Eartha, and we live in a Christic society, and we understand all this stuff. I mean, it's always been that way here. They have never fallen. We are very aware of your planet and its plight, and we have always been here assisting it. We're going to be opening the gates for the first time in ages and ages. Would you invite 300 of us in all at once for the first thing? Get to know little groups first. And we will make contact through projection or glide first. We will each have someone that will work as what's called our advisor. And that doesn't mean they tell you what to do. An advisor, just like presidents have advisors, where they're, well, this is kind of how it looks like, and from what I see, this is how it works, and you can take it or leave it, but that's what I would advise. And there are trainers, ones who have very specialization in particular ascension training, and even not just ascension training, but certain specializations that everybody has a different has a similar history, but also a different history here. We have certain things in common as far as what our entire simultaneous time history has been in our 1728 selves, and what is natural for each one of us to get through this ascension cycle. There are parts of healing the, well, you could call it the karmic imprint, the karmic miasmic imprint that has to do with cellular memory and bringing out the memories of other lifetimes and those kind of things. Things that normally, if you're going to die the body, you do what's called a review when you do a bardo. And it's usually, well, some people start it. People that go through certain diseases where they start to get a dementia kind of thing. They're actually beginning the review while they're still in the body. And it can last for years. Some people, have 50 years of life and 20 years of review before they decide to leave. Yeah, it's a comfort zone thing, as far as what your spirit and soul are comfortable with. But we will, if we are not planning to die a body, or even if we're planning a natural bardo and quick reincarnation into, or not reincarnation, quick incarnation. Reincarnation is something different. Quick incarnation into an aqua fairy form that can do the ascension. you need to do your review while you're still in the body. So there's ones who can help us specifically with that kind of thing, because that can be really, really rough. You start to get the memories open and see who you are in simultaneously existing separate space-time locations, both past and future. Yeah, it can be overwhelming. It can also be, it can really shatter your self-concept. Think, I'm a great Christic being, and then you see who you were 3 lifetimes ago, or like, but the thing is, it's you, but it's not you. You are a Gestalt identity. You have other focuses of selves, or focus personalities, focus identities. You are a focus identity here. You don't lose this identity in ascension. You just remember the rest of yourself and the rest of it. And some of those rememberings can be very, very hard. You may really find compassion for some of the fallen angelics, because you might realize how close you came to being one. Or even if you did become one and worked your way back up through biogenesis. That's all right. But there's a humility that comes with review, and we'll be shown some of the kale-hara teachings are about moving through these type of awakenings with spiritual grace, where you don't beat up on yourself and just want to go jump off a cliff because you can't stand yourself once you realize what you did in some of the other space-time locations, where you learn forgiveness of self and others, where you learn compassion for self and others, where you learn love for self and others, or relearn it, or if you already know it, to be able to strengthen that into a state. There is a state, what is the name? It's in the song. Sunu-ake. Sunu-ake is the name of the state one moves into as they go into the Kali Krista activations. The Sunu-ake state has to do with being able to experience all emotions, but they feel different. You're not detached. You're fully engaged. Fully engaged non-attachment. But it's an ecstasy. And it's not a pill. Right? It's a natural state of cognition when your consciousness starts to have an open, direct flow of energy between the spirit body through the dhala-luma opening into the light body, into the matter body, where you walk in a state of illumination. And even if you can't verbalize it, it doesn't matter. It changes the way you see everything and the way you experience everything progressively, where you realize that the only thing that ever really does exist is love, and anything else is just an illusion of the light body hologram. So there is a place that all those wonderful things you hear about in religions and in the New Age movement about light, love, all that stuff, that is true too. But clueless isn't the way to get there. That's why we've spent 10 years now teaching about this information. So I hope that I've said enough for now. In terms of, I don't want to go into the Aquafarian history stuff. I'll stick that in there somewhere. We already covered that actually in the Easter workshop, but we'll touch on it. The most important thing this evening that I wanted to accomplish was trying to share with you the magnitude of the teachings that they've given us for this workshop. And it was one of those oh my God, I don't have a whole day too. I don't have any graphs for that, which means I'm going to be up probably all tonight and all tomorrow night getting those graphs together. But there is such a joy, and we have a wave to meet on Sunday. They haven't said what time the wave comes through, but I wouldn't doubt it has to do with 12:12, or 11:11. But they've been doing the solar stuff that they just started in Tribe 1 Class 6. Tends to run with the 12s because you just activated what's called the 12-12 temples. A different set of them. These are Crystal Heart Adashi temple sets. They'll let us know. All right, they'll let us know the timings on those.
Which time on Monday will be doing?
Which time on Monday morning we'll be doing it. Yeah, I mean, at this point, most people that have come to our workshops know that, well, it's a weekend workshop, but Sunday usually ends, well, by breakfast Monday.